The Metaverse is emerging as the next big technology platform and promises to be the next frontier for human experiences on the internet. Into the Metaverse covers companies, technologies, and trends that are bringing these promises to life. Join creator and host Jonathan Ross-Friedman, founder and CEO of Super Social, as he interviews the brilliant minds that are building, shaping, and investing in the Metaverse.
Welcome to Into the Metaverse, and we are here for a new weekly episode with Priya and myself, Yon. Priya, great to see you. Happy 4th.
Good to see you too. Happy 4th. I'm celebrating it in a little town just north of the California border in Ashland, Oregon. And we went to a small town parade yesterday, day before, just like we do every year.
Small town parade is underestimated.
It was a lot of fun.
So what's going on? What do we have this week that we feel like is going to be great to talk about in this new episode?
All right, I'm going to tick off 3 things that really caught my eye. 1, Niantic laying off employees, hundreds of them. I think that's definitely worth talking about. 2, the numbers are changing for what we're expecting for Apple's Vision Pro. We're looking at a later delivery and we're looking at fewer units than we thought might ship. But first, I want to get into something that actually we've heard before, Jan, but is causing another round of discussion in the Metaverse circles. It's an article in The Nation, and it is titled, I would say somewhat hyperbolically, Lessons from the Catastrophic Failure of the Metaverse. And, they argue that the product was obviously destined to flop. I think when I read this, a few things. 1, they're talking about it as if it's a product. It's not. 2, they're talking about something that we have all heard over and over again, that it is dead, that is Metaverse winter, that it's not going anywhere. And I didn't see anything that was really factually new from that article. Why is it catching fire, Jan?
Well, I think first and foremost, Apple with the Vision Pro definitely reignited the conversation around Metaverse, or they didn't even mention the word Metaverse, but they ignited the conversation around virtual reality headsets and AR. And I think what this article does, again, like hundreds of articles before that, which is why you're true that there's literally nothing new, but it did catch fire in a conversation as if we haven't been there before. I think it's because Apple kind of brought back the conversation around VR. And when you bring the conversation around VR, people talk about MetaQuest, prior known as Oculus Quest. And when you talk about MetaQuest, you also bring now the conversation about the Metaverse. And I think this article, again, touches about the Metaverse as a product, not as a phenomena. And I think, again, it connected to a device, to VR. And, we're almost at 60 episodes in this show. And I think in every one of the episodes, we always talk about the fact the Metaverse is not a device. The Metaverse may not even be a technology, may not even be a space. Someone recently asked me, so what is the Metaverse about? And I said, you know what? The more I think about it, the more we build, the more we do as Super Social, the more I'm immersed in the space, the more I understand that the Metaverse potentially is about a shift in human behavior. That sure, computing is becoming more powerful. AI is going to enable us to create more content than ever before. Virtual worlds are popping left and right. Roblox is huge. Fortnite creative is big. What if the Metaverse is not even about any of that? What if the Metaverse is really a point in time where human behavior has been shifting, powered by these technologies? Human behavior has really been shifting to a place where virtual avatars and our 3D representation of ourselves in these virtual spaces is the main thing. And I think to some extent it is, which is why it's so funny that people talk about the Metaverse as if it's a gateway to a device or as if a device itself, where really what we're talking about, and that's why I don't even think what's important is if we call it a Metaverse or not. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, just call it immersive internet. Really what it is about the fact that we are people, billions of people now experiencing the internet in a more immersive way, with a sense of presence, where we represent and manifest our desires and affections and talents in a fully digital way. Of course, it's still accessed through 2D screens, but we are manifesting ourselves in a different way. And so, again, it's one of those articles that take the conversation away, and it feels like one of those clickbait, hyperbolic, you mentioned, article with titles that really just need click bites and get readers to read your article catastrophic failure is so ballistic in terms of, oh my God, like what can be so catastrophic, especially as we haven't even gotten started. And so, yes, to your point, I mean, it's just every time I read this article, I'm like, it just reignites me. It gives me more fuel. It makes me more excited, more bullish, not because I'm delusional. I am to some extent, but mostly because I feel we're missing the main point, which is look at the behaviors of people. People come in, they expend themselves into these worlds. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I feel about it.
I was just going to say, like, you are singing my song, right? I was an anthropology major. I look at this time with such wonder because I say, for the first time, our generation is the very first time in human history that we are leaving a 3D record of ourselves behind. And whether that looks like an avatar right now, and as the years go on here, that becomes more and more photorealistic of who we are. It's the first time this has ever happened. We have evolved from those cave paintings to writing to recording audio to having all these 2D image captures on flat screens. And for the very first time in our history, we are creating 3D representations of ourselves. And that is only going to continue as our history goes on, right? So I'm excited to see where we go from here.
And I mean, again, let's look at the data. About 13 million users on Roblox change their avatar outfits every day. I went to a meeting one time with a brand, I'm not going to say their name, and one of the questions that came at me, I would say semi-angrily, is what is virtual goods? Why should we care about it? I'm like, well, so first virtual goods, and I started in explaining what virtual goods is and why you should care about it. Well, you should care about it because there's millions of people who change their avatar outfits every day. That has to tell you something about the dynamics of how these platforms, these spaces are enabling and are impacting the way people just socialize, express themselves, communicate in the future. I mean, if you think that in the future we're not going to call one another on an iPhone talking as avatars, you're definitely not buying into this vision, because I do, because to some extent it's already happening. Look at Snapchats and all the filters. Like everything you're seeing is giving ourselves virtual superpowers so we can be anyone, anywhere, communicate the way we want. That's why it's so fundamental what we're seeing and why I'm so bullish on this category. And again, maybe it's the wording, but I don't really take seriously these articles. I understand the chatter around them, but every time I see these articles with these catastrophic titles about the catastrophic failure and how Facebook and Meta are so bad, not only it misses the point, it does complete injustice to the real innovation that is happening every day, and also to the way people are expressing themselves, even though they are quote-unquote kids.
I will say there was one link in that article, Yon, that drew my attention. And it was specifically talking about the kids in Roblox and concerns over sort of youth labor building much of the site, and some of these kids not being financially savvy enough to know how to manage contracts, to have adults sign for them, and that there have been problems with that in the past for the games that have been successful with some of these young developers. It sounds like Roblox is also evolving as their platform evolves and is creating more safeguards for these young developers. Do you have any knowledge or thoughts of what's happening in that space?
Yeah, look, I think it's first and foremost in any marketplace, and Roblox is a marketplace, right? It's a two-sided marketplace. Roblox provide the infrastructure. Anyone can come and build games, monetize if they can, and then you have users and consumers who come in to consume the games and interact and spend money. In any marketplace, you'll have bad actors, bad behavior. I don't think that's necessarily true just for Roblox. I think it's an internet problem. And also you have a safety problem on the internet, which again is not exclusive to Roblox. So we have had and will continue to have bad actors in marketplaces and online platforms forever. I don't think that's going to go away. The more important thing that I like to mention is that, yes, I'm sure there is a bit of disagreement with regards to how the Roblox platform potentially enables these young developers to make a living off of their creation, and these creations populate the platform. But also, let's remember that there are many developers who monetize and make money on the platform. Some of them are making in the millions. Of course, it's a small portion of a platform with millions of creators and developers. But here's the interesting piece that no one talks about, and I think it's fascinating. Roblox is a platform that gives tools of game creation for free. In order to use those game creation tools, you need to learn to code. Roblox essentially, potentially, is the largest or at least one of the largest platforms around the world that teaches kids to code for free, because they're giving these tools. You can go and watch tutorials on YouTube on how to learn, on how to code games on Roblox. And so I think Roblox has done an incredible service to a massive population of young people, first and foremost in inspiring them to learn to code, inspiring them to create video games. Sure, a small portion of them actually make a living from the games, but I don't think that's the main premise of the vision of Roblox and why Roblox is so successful. And also, in any marketplace, not everyone makes money. Not everyone is succeeding. And I'm not sure I have seen, and I'd be happy to be wrong, but I'm not sure I've seen that Roblox promises that you're going to make a lot of money and you're going to be a millionaire by launching games on the platform. But they do promise you to build things for free. They're not charging you for any of the development tools. They're giving you the server, the space, the cloud operation. So I think, yes, it's probably not perfect, like no platform is perfect, but the gain from the platform, I believe, to a new creative generation, in my mind, is much higher. And I'm saying it as someone who my first company was a computer company that teaches kids how to code and build your own computer. So I do see an incredible value, even if you end up not doing anything on the Roblox platform as you grow up, but it inspires you to create, to build with technology, which I think is phenomenal.
Well, we haven't heard about any of these layoffs that have been affecting so many other tech companies at Roblox, but Niantic in San Francisco, headquartered in San Francisco, there is news that they are laying off another 200 employees on top of almost 100 employees last year. So this is concerning Niantic, of course, the company that famously made Pokemon Go, and a few members of the Pokemon Go team are being let go, but most of them seem to be staying. And that is a game that they continue to invest in. But they have said they're not going to be investing in some Marvel games and NBA games as well.
Look, Niantic became incredibly successful on the back of the massive money-making game that they've built with Pokemon Go that really cemented its positioning as a pioneer in the space. And I think after the game, they have gradually started to want to become a platform, which is a really smart move if you can pull that off and position themselves not as a company that makes games with AR technology, mobile-based, but a company that builds a platform very similar to Roblox, let's say, that allows anyone to come and build games and experiences that are AR-enabled under their platform, which I think it's called Lightship. And so that hasn't proven itself. Not only that hasn't proven itself with building a developer community around the platform, but also all the new bets after Pokemon Go, if it's an NBA game or the Harry Potter game that they launched, none of them became successful. And if they did, it's definitely far away from the success they had and still do with Pokemon Go. This is a tough category. Even Minecraft launched Minecraft Earth during COVID. And during COVID, it didn't succeed as a mobile game based AR similar to Pokemon Go. So it seems like Pokemon Go is really an outlier.
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
I think it's just a novelty. I think it's a novelty that kind of proved itself with Pokemon Go. It was such a lightning in a bottle that doesn't really repeat itself. And that happens to a lot of companies that have a one-hit wonder who try and duplicate those one-hit wonders again. King tried to do that with Candy Crush. Candy Crush is still the biggest money-making game for King. Supercell is probably one of the few companies over the last decade and a half, mobile-based, that have managed to build multiple billion-dollar franchises in mobile gaming. And so it's a very tough haul that Niantic has pulled. They've raised a lot of capital. They've hired hundreds of people, maybe in the low thousands of people, and it didn't work. And we're in a pretty tight economic environment. Maybe they want to prepare themselves for an IPO. Maybe they want to prepare themselves for being acquired. Maybe they want to prepare themselves for raising more capital. And I think we live in a world where being break-even or profitable is something that every company needs to do, if it's small as a 50-people company or 5,000 people company. And so it's unfortunate. I don't think it says much about the wider space and the wider category. Niantic likes to position itself as kind of the physical metaverse, the metaverse in the real world, which I think is a really interesting positioning. And I definitely wouldn't rule out that they are able to, come outside of these firing as stronger and, building their platform. But look, let's see what happens. Definitely Pokemon Go has been the only big success they have seen, but nonetheless, it's a pretty major success.
Well, when you talk about that tight economic environment, I can't help but wonder how much is impacting what we're hearing about Apple's Vision Pro and the fact that it looks like now they're shipping is going to be delayed. I don't know that they ever really said exactly when we were going to be seeing these headsets in stores. But I think most of us were expecting it to be later in 2023. Now it looks like 2024, maybe early 2024 is what they're saying. We're also hearing that there are fewer numbers of units that are going to be created and shipped than the analysts originally seemed to think. What's happening here? Is this about the tight economic conditions that we're in? Is this about creating the pieces that are needed for this very, very sophisticated hardware? Where's the bottleneck?
Look, I had a computer company. I've built supply chains, definitely not at the scale of Apple, but small supply chain, large supply chain, it's incredibly complex, especially with the new product, especially with the level of innovation and all the new components that are bespoke to the device that Apple has been building. I'm not surprised that it's going to take longer, especially with the economy, especially with supply chain shortcuts, especially potentially with relationships in China and Taiwan. You just never know where supply chain will take you. So none of what I'm saying kind of really is shocking. It's just difficult to figure out supply chains. It took Apple many, many years to perfect and scale their iPhone supply chain, their Mac, and so on and so forth. This is what Tim Cook has done. Keep in mind, Tim Cook is the guy who built Apple's gigantic, scalable, world-class supply chain in China over so many years. So if there is anyone in this company that understands what it takes, it's him. Having said that, I'm not surprised. I think it would be great if they can launch in 2024. What I find really entertaining and interesting is the fact that we went from before they launched the Vision Pro, analysts and estimates were, it would be great if they release a few 100,000. Now suddenly you have analysts after the announcement to talk about 5 million devices being launched. So there's obviously a lot of hype, a lot of excitement. You're talking about Apple. People feel like there's going to be more demand than Apple anticipates. Let's see. I do think that the supply chain is probably a short-term issue that Apple will need to fix, and they will figure it out. Maybe not in V1, maybe not in V2, but definitely in V3, 4, 5. So, I think Apple launched the Vision Pro in 2023. I think they have to go live, even with 10,000, 50,000, 100,000 units in 2024. They have to build the momentum and excitement of the developer community. I think it will be imperative for them to do so rather than wait until 2025. The excitement might wane and the developer community is enthusiastic, which is really important for the innovation on top of the device.
I think there's also so much weighing on Apple right now that they've finally brought this out to the public. They've got to show something in the stores.
As they say, real artists ship.
Love it. Great last words. Thanks, Yon.
Thank you, Priya. Good to see you.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Into the Metaverse. We hope you learned a lot and explored new aspects of the Metaverse.